Now we're going to look at solving by elimination. So we've solved by graphing in 8.1. We solved by substitution in 8.2. And today we're going to look at solving by elimination. This seems to be the method most people like. And in fact, I do elimination unless it's very simple and it's already solved for y and the substitution is really easy. But either way will work. And on your test, you'll have one that does say solve by graphing. That one you have to graph. But the other two will just say solve the system. And you can either use substitution or elimination, whichever one you prefer. So let's look at this first one. So when you're solving by elimination, you're thinking to yourself that I want to add these together and I need something to cancel out, either the x or the y. And in order for something to cancel, they have to be complete opposites of each other. And so this first one's already pretty easy to work out because do you see the x's are already opposites? So all we have to do is add them together. Now don't forget, this is a 1x and a 1x. So when you add them, 1x plus 1x is 2x. The y's cancel out, and 5 plus 3 is 8. And now we just solve for x by dividing by 2, and we get x equals 4. But remember, we're not finished until we've solved for x and y. So we have our x, so then you just go back to either one of these. It doesn't matter which one, you'll get the same answer no matter what. I'm just going to pick the first one just because it's right there. And I'm going to plug this 4 in for x. So you don't have to rewrite this, but I'm going to rewrite it. So I'm going to use x plus y equals 5, and I'm going to plug a 4 in for x. So that becomes a 4 plus y equals 5, or minus my 4, y equals 1. So remember, these answers are in ordered pairs. The answer for this first one is 4, 1. Again, if you graphed them, that would be what you come up with. So this one's easy because they're already opposites, but of course they're not always that easy. So let's look at this next one. And so in order to do them too, and we'll talk about one later on, you've got to have your x's lined up, your y's lined up, your equals, and your numbers. And so this one is. And so then you want to get rid of either the x or the y. It doesn't matter which one. This one, nothing's opposite, so we're going to have to do a little work. And so it really doesn't matter which one you pick. I'm just going to choose the x's because they're right here at the beginning. And so to make these both the same, what you want to do is multiply this one by 5 and this one by 2, which would make them both 10. But we need them to be opposite signs in order to cancel out, because here 10 plus 10 would be 20. We need them to be opposite, so you make one of them negative. And it doesn't matter which one you do. Your neighbor could do it completely different and still get the same answer. You could do 3 and 2 on the y's and get the same answer. There's just lots of different ways to do it. But just remember, whatever you do to the first one, you have to do to all of them. So the top equation, I have to multiply them all by 5. And the bottom equation, I have to multiply them all by 2. So just be careful when you're multiplying here. I can't tell if it's focusing. There we go. So this would give me a negative 10x, a negative 15y, and a positive 75. Then on the bottom, I get a positive 10x, a positive 10y, and a 2. And so when I go to add these together, do you see that now these are opposites, so they're going to cancel out. So these would cancel, and a negative 15 and a positive 10 is a negative 5y, and then 70, did I do that right? Yeah. 75 plus 2 is 77. I was going to redo it, and then I realized it's actually best for me to show you when I make a mistake how to fix it. So right here I realized, wow, something's wrong because that's not going to divide out. And what I did was my mistake right here, because 2 times 2 is 4 right there, which then gives me sorry about the shaking camera, a negative 11 right there. So we all make mistakes. And so that becomes a negative 11, y equals 77, or divide by negative 11, y equals negative 7. So now we have one of our answers, but remember we have to have 2, and you can plug it into either one of these or either one of these up here. It really doesn't matter. I always just kind of look for the easiest one, and for some reason this bottom one looks easiest to me, but again, it doesn't really matter which one you pick. So I'm going to plug it in, this 5x plus 2y equals 1, where y is negative 7. So this becomes a 5x plus 2 parentheses equals 1. Because we're plugging in for y is negative 7. So we get a 5x minus 14 equals 1. I'm going to add my 14. 5x equals 15. Divide by 5, x equals 3. So my answer is the ordered pair 3, negative 7. Okay, let's look at another one. Oh, the dreaded fraction. There'll be a fraction on your test. And just don't, I hope you'll get to where you don't freak out when you have fractions, because in college algebra, you're going to have them all the time. And so when you see a fraction, just think, I'm going to get rid of it on the first step. So I used to tell a story about my son when he's in high school. I was working with him, tutoring him, like, now what do you do when you see a fraction? Because I've been telling him all along to get rid of them. He said, skip it. I'm like, okay, well, that is what most kids do. But we're not going to skip it. We're going to look at our denominators and get our common denominator, which is 15, because that's the first multiple they have all in common. And we're going to multiply each one of them by 15. Let me erase this so it doesn't kind of get in the way. So we're going to say 15 times 1 is 15, divided by 5 is, I'm going to go down here, is 3x, plus 15 times 2 is 30. 30 divided by 3 is 10y. And then a negative, and then 15 times 8 is 120. Divided by 5 is that 24? Yeah, 24. So I got rid of my fractions in the first step. And then let's just go ahead and rewrite the second equation. I'm just rewriting it down here so we can kind of see them compared. So you could get rid of the x's or the y's. It doesn't matter. If you were getting rid of the y's, you'd want to multiply everything on the bottom by 10, because you see it's already opposite. Or if you wanted to get rid of the x's, they're already the same number, but they're not opposite. So remember, you can change any sign that you want to, as long as you change them all. So I could make this a negative 3x as long as I make that a positive y and that a negative 9. And now we can add them together, which cancels that out and gives me an 11y equals, the signs are alike, add and keep the same sign, so a negative 33. Divide by 11, y equals negative 3. Again, we only have one of our answers, so we can put it in here, 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 or here. You can put it in any of them, but the one that jumps out being the easiest to me is that 3x. So let's do 3x minus, a parentheses goes in for y, equals 9. And what does y equal? Negative 3. So be careful, because two negatives make a positive, so this becomes a 3y plus 3 equals 9. And then I'm going to minus a 3, 3y equals 6. Divide by 3, y equals, whoops, I went off the camera, y equals 2. So my answer there is 2, negative 3. Okay, let's do one more. Let's go back up here. Okay, so by looking at it, there's two things going on. First of all, it's not in the right order. The x's are lined up, but do you see the y's are not lined up and the numbers are not lined up? So I'm going to rewrite the first one. The first one's in correct order. 4x minus 3y equals 1. But this one is not in correct order because I need to move my 6y over. Or you can just think, I can move this 6y to the other side as long as I change the sign. So when I move that over, the 8x, it becomes an 8x minus 6y equals 3. Okay, we either need to get rid of our x or our y. It doesn't matter. I'm just going to get rid of the x just out of habit because it's right here on the top. And do you see, you could multiply the top by 8 and the bottom by 4. That would be perfectly okay. But the easiest thing is to multiply this by 2, because then they both become an 8. But then we need one of them to be negative. So I'm going to do everything on the top by negative 2. And then it's going to rewrite down here as a negative 8x, a plus 6y equals a negative 2. Then when we add these together, do you see that cancels and that cancels? So I'm left with 0 on that side. All my y's are gone, so I'm left with nothing, which is 0. And then 3 minus 2 is 1. That's a false statement, so my answer here is no solution. If you graph those, they would be that parallel line. If it was a true statement, it would be all real numbers. So you're either going to get an ordered pair or no solution, or an all real numbers. So that's solving two equations, two unknowns by elimination.